Okay, let's dive right in. Today, we're talking about a single court decision that, honestly, turned the tables on the entire Australian business landscape. It completely rewrote a decades-old rule about corporate debt in insolvency.
I know, it sounds a bit dramatic, right? Can one case really do that? Well, the answer is a huge, resounding yes. We're going to unpack exactly how one landmark case did just that, and more importantly, what it means for companies, directors, and their creditors from here on out.
So, here's how we're going to break it down. First, we'll get a handle on the old rule. Then we'll look at the legal challenge that took it down. We'll cover the High Court's final game-changing decision, and then the big one, what this new reality actually looks like for businesses today.
Right, so to really get why this change is such a massive deal, we've got to rewind a bit. We need to understand the way things used to be, the legal landscape before this all happened.
The whole thing really hinges on a concept called an unfair preference claim. So picture this. A company's in trouble. It's a sinking ship. In its last few months, it manages to pay back one of its suppliers in full. But then there's no money left for anyone else. Well, once that company officially goes into liquidation, a liquidator can legally claw back that payment, so the money can be spread out more fairly among all the people the company owed money to.
Now here's where it used to get really interesting. To maximize that clawback, liquidators had this special tool called the peak indebtedness rule. Think of it like a running tab at a shop or even your credit card statement. This rule let a liquidator look at the 6 months right before the company collapsed, find the one moment the debt to a supplier was at its absolute highest, its peak, and then claim every single dollar paid back after that point as an unfair preference.
And you can see how powerful that was, right? It was an incredibly effective tool. It gave liquidators a massive advantage, letting them cherry-pick the most profitable starting point to claw back as much cash as possible for the pool of creditors. But, as you can imagine, a rule that powerful didn't sit right with everyone. And that brings us to the landmark case that changed absolutely everything.
The case was Bryan versus Badenoch. And this wasn't just some minor squabble over details. No, this was a full-on assault on the legal foundation of the rule itself. It basically asked, hey, does the law actually support this practice?
And this wasn't some quick affair. The case had to climb the ladder of the entire court system. It was argued, appealed, and argued again, working its way all the way up until it finally landed in the High Court of Australia for the ultimate legal showdown.
At its very core, the whole case boiled down to this one fundamental question. Was it actually fair, or even legal, for the system to give liquidators this power to just pick the most convenient date on a calendar to maximize a claim, even if it ignored the bigger picture of the business relationship?
And that question led to a pretty dramatic conclusion. After being standard practice for decades, this rule was finally facing its judgment day. And the verdict was crystal clear. The High Court of Australia sided with the challenge and abolished the peak indebtedness rule. Just like that, a major piece of Australian insolvency law was simply gone.
This all went down in 2023. You can be sure that's a date now circled on the calendars of every liquidator, director, and creditor in the country. It was a true turning point.
The impact was immediate and massive. The rule is gone, wiped from the books. Liquidators can no longer just pick that peak date. The entire formula for calculating how much money can be clawed back from a creditor was basically torn up and thrown out.
So that brings us to the most important question of all. What now? What does this new reality actually look like on the ground? What does life after the peak indebtedness rule mean for real businesses? This slide here really spells it out perfectly. Before, it was all about that single highest point of debt, the peak. But now, the whole game has changed. A liquidator has to look at the entire running account. They can't just fixate on the payments a company made to the creditor. They have to look at the whole two-way street, including any new supplies or services the creditor provided to the company. The key question is now about the net effect. At the end of the day, did the company's total debt to that one creditor actually go down over that period?
So let's quickly break down who this really affects. For liquidators, their job just got a lot more complicated. That old shortcut is gone. For company directors, this could actually be good news, giving them a much stronger defense against some of these claims. And for creditors, especially suppliers who kept supporting a struggling business, this is huge. It means the system now takes a more realistic view of their relationship, recognizing that they weren't just taking payments, they were also providing value that might have been trying to keep the company afloat. Look, if you take just one thing away today, let it be this. The focus has completely shifted. We've moved from freezing a single moment in time, that peak, to understanding the continuous story, the full narrative, of the financial relationship between a company and its creditor.
And all of this leaves us with a final, pretty fascinating question. The old rule, for all its faults, was designed to get the most money back for all of the creditors. The new reality is way more nuanced. So has this decision finally struck a fairer balance between that goal and the tough reality of a business trying to trade its way out of trouble? Well, that is the brand new landscape that everyone is navigating right now.